What's up guys, Belmont here. So, in my previous videos, I have analyzed every single boss strat Sawdust by the Greedy Librarian. And hey, if you haven't watched them already, then I'll leave the link for them right now. But today, I'll be ranking every single boss fight in the entire game, and let me tell you man, making this video was a lot of fun. So subscribe and hit that like button if you're interested in more content like this. My criteria for this was pretty simple. First, I kept in mind how would those bosses have been for a first timer in the game. And second, I considered scenarios where players wouldn't be over-leveled or be using cheese strats, no matter how readily accessible they were. This means no spells, holy water, freezing the doppelganger with the stopwatch, and Crisagrim spamming, among other things. There is something you do need to keep in mind though. The videos I'll be using to rank the bosses are exactly the same ones as the Librarian Sawdust, so there will be a few instances where I'll be saying, you know, this boss is dynamic, this boss is good for this, this and that, and you're gonna be seeing on screen something completely stupid and easy to execute. But alright, let's go. First up, we have the Karasuman. The fact that you're able to stun lock him mid-air makes this fight a cakewalk. Even your 2-year-old son or daughter could defeat him. He's so pathetic he's later demoted to a mere sacrifice by Dracula during the final battle. Really, this guy sucks. 23. The Medusa. She could be seen as the female version of our incompetent crowman, so to speak, in terms of capabilities. She moves slowly, telegraphs her attacks with a full week's warning, and is pretty much just waiting to die the whole fight. I guess she didn't know what she was signing up for. 22. The Hippogriff. One of the most memorable members of Symphony of the Night's shitty boss division. Really, there's a whole division for this apparently. The Hippogriff can be ended pretty quickly by simply ducking under his fire breath. Which, you know, is a shame because I really like this boss's design. I love birds. 21. Akmoden. Moving as slow as molasses and with attacks that wouldn't make a first grader break a sweat, this guy was just there for the body count. Really, that's what he was there for. Plain and simple. Which is a shame because the fight against Arlox takes place in this very same hall. And that was a very good fight. And as a side note, if this was Akmoden the second, I can only imagine how pathetic the first one was. Jesus. Number 20. The Succubus. As impactful as Alucard's nightmare is, this beautiful soul-stealing demon never really amounted to much in terms of combat. Sure, her illusion technique can be tricky, but she doesn't have a lot of firepower to make it exactly deadly. Oh well, as fickle as dreams are, she vanishes. Number 19. Darkwing Bat. Look, I'll be fair, the idea behind this boss is actually very good. He does have some interesting attacks, but the problem is that Alucard is way too mobile for him to be able to get the upper hand or present any significant threat. He's weak, but I do appreciate what they tried to do. Alright, that about covers the shitty bosses. Now we begin entering the realm of good quality opposition. And to start things up, we have our beloved Cerberus in the 18th position. Even though you're very unlikely to die fighting him, he does have quite a few quick attacks that can catch you off guard. And he's actually somewhat nimble with his launch attack. Fun boss. Number 17. Gaibon and Stogra. Yes, Alucard's very first bosses. I always liked the idea that they chose to make you face a duo of enemies consisting of one fire-spitting, long-range flying monster and one hitchhiking short-range fighter. Perhaps, if they had more health, this fight would have been much more challenging. And I'm thinking about doing a Symphony of the Night run that's somewhat tougher. You know, maybe using some sort of mod, so if you know any good ones, then please, let me know in the comments. Number 16. Doppelganger, level 40. By the time you reach him in the second castle, you'll be both very familiar with the game's controls and also have a somewhat pretty decent loadout. While, you know, our knockoff friend barely changes anything at all. Maybe if he had some new abilities he'd be up on this list, but, you know, oh well. Number 15. Prologue Dracula. It may be strange to some of you since this is literally the only boss fight you cannot lose even if you lay your controller on the floor, but what we are presented with is actually a pretty decent introduction to Symphony of the Night with quite a few quirks. And remember, you know, Richter doesn't exactly have a whole lot of health to begin with. I really like this fight. Number 14. The Creature. Easily the most forgettable boss out of the entire franchise. Be honest with me, did you remember this guy even existed? I bet you didn't. But anyway, this rolling abomination doesn't present a whole lot in terms of difficulty. He just rolls and attacks, you know? He's pretty much a Dark Souls player! And listen, I'm a huge fan of Dark Souls. It's one of my favorite franchises, you know, it's up there with Castlevania, Metal Gear, and maybe a few others. So I have a video, actually a series of videos about Dark Souls coming on. My next video will be a video about things that made us very happy when we played Dark Souls 1. It's a very special game to me, man, so make sure to subscribe and stay tuned, because if you're a Dark Souls fan, then you're gonna love this. Okay, so we're starting to enter the upper echelons of Symphony of the Night's bosses. From here on out, you'll be seeing nothing but the best. And some of them will surprise you, I'm certain, such as number 13, which is Doppelganger level 10. Yes. Now, I know, you're thinking, wait, the weaker version of Doppelganger hangs higher than the stronger one? What the fuck, Belmont? In short, yes, this fight had that added element of surprise. When you first fight him, you don't really know what to expect. It's like, oh shit, I'm fighting another Alucard, he's gonna have the same skills as I do. And his movements are also very different and more nimble than most bosses. Add that to the fact that you'll be pretty weak the first time you fight him, and you have a very good boss in front of you. Number 12. Death. His second form is pretty weak, actually it's fucking pathetic, but his first form has him spamming those annoying sickles all over the fucking battlefield. Add that to a couple of different attacks, such as the skull orbs and the red scythes, and you could be in trouble pretty quickly. Number 11. Scylla. Yes, you heard it right, Scylla. Remember, this list considers the fact that the player will not spam spells, be overleveled, or actually have any previous knowledge about the bosses themselves. With its many worms, blue spheres, collapsing ceiling, and a few more tricks up her sleeve, this boss is very hectic and tricky, and it's also extremely beautiful to look at. I mean, look at this pixel art, it's gorgeous. Next up, number 10, Grenfalloon or Legion. One of my favorite bosses in the entire franchise, this giant mass of soulless beings require you to be very fast and quick on your toes. In order to reach its score, you must destroy pieces of its outer shell, all while managing endless waves of undead on the ground while trying to remain airborne. It's a pretty clever fight, and I always have a hell of a time whenever I face Grenfalloon in any Castlevania game it appears. And also, I have a video explaining what the hell is a Grenfalloon. You know, this seems like a random word, but trust me, it isn't. It's some pretty interesting psychological stuff, so I'll leave the link to it right now, for your convenience, of course. Number 9. Beelzebub. Now, here's a fun fact. Although he's the one you need to attack, Beelzebub isn't capable of doing any sort of damage to you himself. I mean, who could in such a state? The real danger comes from both the maggots on the ground and the gigantic flies that will swarm you trying to protect their meal. If you don't equip the Topaz Circlet, you're in for one tough time. And to this day, this boss still unsettles me. Ugh. Number 8. Richter. Oh yes, my favorite Belmont. He is quite aggressive and packs one hell of a punch. It may not seem like it from this video, which is a strat the librarian sells you, but, you know, make no mistakes, the first time you fight him, he's gonna hand you your ass. This is one solid boss battle, and if you consider the lore, it's even more dramatic. Number 7. Trevor, Sypha, and Grant. With 3 different characters attacking from both different directions and angles, there's a lot to watch out for here, making one very interesting and intense boss fight. Number 6. Dracula. Fighting him without cheesing is quite tricky because you have very little space to move around, and he has some pretty unorthodox attacks up his sleeve. Not enough to earn him a podium, but still a respectable incarnation of our favorite vampire lord. Number 5. Orlox. This two-faced aristocrat from hell has quite a number of tricks up his sleeve, making him one of the most resourceful bosses in the entire game. From energy columns to bats and energy slashes, he has it all. And to top it off, once you get to phase 2, he turns into this fire-speeding monster who engages in illegal bullet hell activities and pretends he's Terry Bogard, literally speeding out power geysers your way. What a character. Number 4. Werewolf and Minotaur. This duo is even deadlier than Trevor, Sypha, and Grant were because you meet them reasonably early into the game, and they supplement each other very well. The werewolf is small and fast, whereas the Minotaur is big and powerful, and they have many team-up attacks that are quite tricky to dodge. Definitely one of my favorite bosses in the entire franchise. Alright, it's time for the podium. And by the way, man, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you're enjoying this video, alright? Number 3. Shaft. Not the cock. This unorthodox boss can best many of us if we're not careful with his different sphere attacks and hovering around the screen. Fighting Dracula's right hand can be quite a challenge the first time you play this game. And now for the runner-up. Number 2. Maria. If you ever wondered how the hell she managed to stay ahead of Alucard, one exceedingly powerful vampire during the whole game, well then she makes a point to show it to you. She's fast, powerful, and has many types of attacks, resulting in a relentless assault. Again, you're watching a boss tactic that's sold by the librarian blah 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 blah, so don't take this footage into account, man. Your first time will be nothing like this. It's gonna be hell. And for our grand champion, who else could it be but Galamoth? Yes, this is this game's hardest boss, period. His assaults are relentless, he deals high damage and has an ungodly amount of health power. If you fight him head on without making the adequate preparations, you're gonna bite the bullet very, very quickly and many times. I know I did. So that was it for this video. I hope you had a great time watching it again, man. I had so much fun making this list, and I hope this video really flies because I want to make more videos like it. And let me know in the comments your own custom lists, your top bosses versus your weak bosses. Of course, Garsamon should always be at the very bottom. But anyway, I hope you had a great time. Stay safe, and I'll see you next round. Belmont out.